everyone, this is Kruti Patel from Pharmaceutical Technology Department, LG Institute of Pharmacy. In today's session, we are going to learn about bioavailability. It is a very basic video. In this video, we are just going to clear basic concepts of bioavailability. So now in this session, what we will be seeing what is bioavailability, then what is the need, why bioavailability, then what are the different types of bioavailability and different measurement methods for the bioavailability. So let's start with the first part, what is bioavailability. If we talk about bioavailability, then it is the rate and extent to which any drug reaches to systemic circulation is known as bioavailability. Now that can be drug or its active metabolite, whatever that can be. Okay, so that is bioavailability. In what time, at what rate drug is reaching to its systemic circulation where that drug has to give effect. Okay, so that is known as bioavailability. So I guess now what is bioavailability is clear. Now let's move further. Why bioavailability? Developing any drug from dosage form to product, at that point this bioavailability is important because we need to know what is the therapeutic activity of that drug, in what time that is giving effect. If we know the bioavailability, then we can definitely design a very nice dosage form according to its characteristic. Okay, so first of all, it is required in the primary or primary stages of drug development. Then if we talk about the second part, then determination of influence of excipients on absorption pattern, means when we are preparing tablet, we will be adding API, that is our active pharmaceutical ingredient, that is our drug, right? Then we might be adding different disintegrants, coloring agents, flavoring agents. We will be adding all these parts. Okay, so in that cases, whether that all excipients are affecting our dosage form or not, we have to determine that. So for that case, this bioavailability is important. Then if we talk about the next part, why it is required, then if we want to develop new formulation of any existing dosage form, that means paracetamol, yes, you know that is my classic example, right? So if we talk about paracetamol tablet, and now I want to go for preparing paracetamol nano suspension. So if I am knowing the bioavailability, then it will be worth whether I should go for new formulation or not. Okay, so this is why bioavailability is important. Then of course it works as quality control tool and influence on processing, storage and stability factors of many dosage forms. That's why this bioavailability is important. So our next part is different types of bioavailability. So if we talk about different types of bioavailability, then there are two types. First is absolute bioavailability and second is relative bioavailability. Now absolute term, what is this absolute word means? Absolute means its own. Okay, so that is known as absolute bioavailability. That means products own bioavailability. Now how products own bioavailability can be calculated? So as we all know that when we give any drug by IV method, that is intravenous method, then that goes into systemic circulation. So here we can take IV as absolute bioavailability. That means we can compare any dosage form with IV and we can term it as absolute bioavailability. So the systemic availability of a drug administered orally or by any other route is compared to IV, then it is known as absolute bioavailability. If the drug is poorly water soluble, then we can go for intramuscular dose as a standard. Okay, equation of absolute bioavailability, then F is equals to AUC oral upon AUC IV multiplied by dose of IV upon dose of oral. Now if we talk about the second part, then it is relative bioavailability. Now what is this relative bioavailability? Relative bioavailability means when we compare any dosage form with any other dosage form, then that is known as relative bioavailability. In case of absolute bioavailability, what was differing? The route of administration was differing, right? Now in case of relative bioavailability, dosage form will vary, not the route of administration. Relative bioavailability of oral tablet can be determined in comparison to relative bioavailability of oral capsules. This determination is used to characterize absorption of drug from its formulation. Now this relative bioavailability can be denoted as FR. So if you look at the equation, then FR is equals to AUC test upon AUC standard multiplied by dose test, multiplied by dose standard upon dose test. Now standard, that means whichever standard means any dosage form of which bioavailability you are knowing, so that will be taken as standard. And test means any dosage form of which bioavailability you want to determine, so that is test. Okay, so this was all about relative bioavailability. Next part is measurement of bioavailability. So now the measurement of bioavailability can be done by two different methods. First is pharmacokinetic method and second is pharmacodynamic method. Now this pharmacokinetic method means indirect. That means we are giving drug. We are not measuring the effect of drug on body. In place of that, we are measuring different parameters and we are checking whether our drug is reaching into systemic circulation at what time and at what time it will be giving effect. So that is pharmacokinetic, means that is indirect. The second part is pharmacodynamic method, which is a direct method. That means we are giving any drug, we are observing its effect, and then we are coming into conclusion, means what can be the bioavailability of that dosage form. There are two types of pharmacokinetic method. First is plasma level time studies and second is urinary excretion studies. And if we talk about the pharmacodynamic methods, then first is acute pharmacological response and second is therapeutic response. Before going into detail of the methods, the basic steps which we need to understand in carrying out any bioavailability studies, then there are four basic steps. First is selection of volunteers. Now what is the selection of volunteers? Okay, before going into detail, let me brief you how these pharmacokinetic methods are actually done. So for that, first of all, you have to choose different volunteers, or you have to choose people. Let's make it very simple and very clear. You have to choose some people, then you have to call them, then you have to administer drug, and then you have to take out samples. If it is plasma level study, then you have to take out blood samples. If it is urinary excretion studies, then you have to take urine samples, and then you have to analyze, and then you have to see effects. So that is pharmacokinetic methods. This is how the actual studies takes place. It is not so easy. This sounds very easy in steps, but it is not so. This is just a brief. Okay, so this is how the method goes on. So now in this method, the question comes. I mentioned that we have to choose people, right? So what kind of people we need to choose? Either we need to go for patients or we need to go for healthy humans. Here is a very difficult question comes. Either patient or healthy human volunteers. So according to me, not according to me, actually according to studies, we have to go for healthy human volunteers. Now you might have question, we are checking the effect of drug, then why not on patients? Why on healthy human volunteers? The answer is, the studies are actually very complicated. Okay, you have to administer drug, then you have to follow certain conditions, means you have to stay there, you cannot have food or water without permission at specific time interval, you have to take out samples, you have to analyze. This all studies are very complicated, so it is very much difficult in patients. One thing, patients are already ill, they are already taking treatment, and in this treatment duration you cannot give them harsh fasting condition or harsh study conditions. You cannot impose on them. So it is always preferred this all studies are done in healthy human volunteers. So the first advantage in doing healthy human volunteers is the study will become easy. Then second is you can have proper measure of any specific drug. What happens in case of patients, they might be receiving any other treatment, like one person might be having diabetes, at the same time hypertension, and if I am checking the effect of any XYZ drug, then I cannot tell that patient to stop that hypertension medication and diabetes medication. I cannot say that thing to patient. Okay, otherwise there are chances of he might have some other complications. And at the same time, I don't know, I won't be knowing whether my drug is actually giving effect because of its own action or because of this anti-hypertensive drug or anti-diabetic drug. Okay, so these all are the complications. So always it is preferred that this studies has to be performed on healthy human volunteers. Okay, so if you look at the basic steps, then first is selection of volunteers. Now you all know that we have to go for healthy subjects. Okay, not patients. Healthy subjects means healthy human volunteers between the specific age, that is 30 to 40, and not on persons having not any other disease or not taking any medications. Okay, so this are known as healthy human volunteers. Okay. Then next is administration of drug. As I told you, first you have to select person, then you have to administer drug. Then collection of sample comes. That means at specific time interval you have to withdraw blood sample or urine sample and you have to analyze. And last is determination of bioavailability. That means after generating or after collecting all data, you have to analyze them. So that is how so this is the basic steps in conducting any studies. Let's start with the first method, that is plasma level time studies. Now this is the most reliable and method of choice compared to urinary excretion studies. Now these studies can be performed in by two different methods. First is single dose study and second is multiple dose studies. As name suggests, single dose study means you have to administer one dose and then you have to analyze how your drug is working. Now what is this biological half-life? Let's take example of paracetamol. Paracetamol has biological half-life of 4 hours approximately. That means after 4 hours, the effect of drug will started getting reduced. Okay, so that is half-life. Means your 50% of drug will be eliminated, only 50% will be remaining. So that is half-life. So 2 to 3 biological half-life, that means paracetamol has 4 hours of half-life, 2 to 3, let's take 3 biological half-life. So 4 multiplied by 3, that is 12 hours. So I have to collect samples for 12 hours. So that is collection of blood sample for 2 to 3 biological half-life. Okay, this is how it is calculated. So yes, this can be given either IV or by either oral. At least 3 sample points has to be collected from one compartmental model, and if you are going for 2 compartment model, then 5 to 6 sample points has to be taken. Once you take all the follow the steps, then you have to construct a plot. Which plot? Plasma concentration versus time plot. Now as you can see, this plots gives you 3 important parameters. First is AUC, second is Cmax, and third is Tmax. Now Cmax is peak plasma concentration, Tmax is time of peak concentration, and AUC, that is area under the curve. Now next is multiple dose study. Now multiple dose study, the dose we have to minimum administer 5 doses, so that is known as drug administration for at least 5 biological half-life. Now this dosing interval should be greater than equals to biological half-life to reach the steady state. Now what is this dosing interval? Now greater than or equals to biological half-life. Now let's call that example of paracetamol. As I told you, paracetamol has biological half-life of 4 hours. Okay. Now how can I decide dosing interval? That means I cannot administer drug before 4 hours. Say for example, I am conducting study on paracetamol. I administer drug at 8 o'clock in the morning. Then next dose which I can administer of paracetamol is 8 to 9, 9 to 10, 10 to 11, 11 to 12. Okay, so I can administer next dose after 12 o'clock. Okay, or at 12 o'clock or after 12 o'clock. So that should be, the dosing interval should be greater than equals to biological half-life. This is what this means. Okay, otherwise what happens, your drug is not your drug won't be reaching to Cmax, and again you are giving drug, so it would be very complicated. That's why this dosing frequency should always be greater than equals to biological half-life. After giving this dose, 8 to 10 samples are collected. That means I gave dose at 8 o'clock in the morning. Then between 8 to 12, if I am administering next dose at 12 o'clock, then between 8 to 12, I have to take minimum 8 samples. Okay, so that is how the studies are performed. By giving multiple dose, we will be reaching steady state concentration. Now what is the steady state concentration? That means after some time your drug will be constantly available in the body at specific concentration, and that concentration will be giving effect. So in most of the diseases, the steady state concentration is very important to give effect. When you look at the equations for the multiple dose study, then FR is equals to AUC test upon AUC standard multiplied by dose standard upon dose test multiplied by tau test upon tau standard. Now all the terms you are knowing except tau. Tau means that is dosing interval, means at what time interval you are administering drug, that you have to add, and then you can easily have relative bioavailability. The same equation applies if you are if you are taking CSS, that is steady state concentration. You just have to place CSS max in place of AUC and you get your equation. So that was all about plasma level time studies, which can be done by two methods, either single dose study or multiple dose study. But in most of the cases, more reliable method is multiple dose study. Now next method for the pharmacokinetic method is urinary excretion studies. Now there are some basic criteria for the urinary excretion studies. At least 10 to 20% drug should be excreted unchanged in urine. Okay, if your drug is not eliminating in unchanged form in urine, then this method cannot be performed. Why? Because if your drug is not excreted in urine in unchanged form, then we cannot determine, okay, your drug, if your drug is converting into metabolite, then we cannot measure metabolite. At least we should have how much amount of drug is eliminating, and then reversely we can calculate the bioavailability. If this much amount of drug is eliminating, then this much amount of drug must be available in the body. This is how, this is the reverse method actually. Okay, so your drug should be eliminating, your 10 to 20% drug should be eliminating in urine. By then and then only you can perform this method. Okay, so that was the first criteria. Second is, before starting this method, the water loading is important parameter. Now what is this water loading? Once your healthy human volunteers comes, you first have to give him 400 ml of water. So that is known as water loading. So after giving that 400 ml water, then you can administer drug. Okay, so that is water loading. So at 8 o'clock in the morning, you are giving 400 ml of water. Then you can start study at 9 o'clock. Okay, so that is known as water loading. So at 9 o'clock, what I have to do, first of all, I have to take urine sample, and that urine sample will be taken as blank sample. Okay, so after collecting that urine at 9 o'clock, I have to administer drug, and then at each hour interval, I have to give 200 ml water. That means at 9 o'clock I administer drug, then at 10 o'clock I have to give patient 200 ml water to drink, then at 10 o'clock, then 11 o'clock, so likewise, and this has to be repeated, this has to be continued for minimum 4 hours. Okay, before giving water, means after each hour before giving water, you have to collect sample of urine, and that is analyzed. Okay, so that is the important criteria. Then the important thing is, this has to be continued for minimum 7 biological half-life. Then and only you can have proper idea how this urinary excretion studies work, or what is the bioavailability of your drug. The important parameters for the urinary excretion studies are dxu by dt max, which is equivalent to C max, then Tu max, which is equivalent to T max in plasma concentration time level studies, and xu infinite, which is equivalent to AUC in plasma concentration time profile. So that was all about urinary excretion studies. Yes, now next part is equations for the urinary excretion studies. All the equations are same, just at the plasma concentration time profile. Just in place of C max, T max, AUC, you have to plot. You have to place dxu by dt max, Tu max, and xu infinite. The next method is acute pharmacological response, which is pharmacodynamic method. Now in this method, you have to administer drug, and you have to see the changes in pharmacological response like ECG or EEG, or changes in pupil diameter, and you just have to construct pharmacological effect versus time curve or dose response curve, and you get how the drug is working, or what is the bioavailability of drug. This is direct method because you are administering drug and you are checking the effect. That's why it is known as direct method. The major disadvantage of this method is it is inaccurate and variable method. Now next method is therapeutic response method. In this method, the main important drawback is it has to be performed on patients. Okay, that is most important drawback. Now why therapeutic response has to be performed on patients? Because if you want to have actual idea of drug, then it has to be administered in patients. Say for example, paracetamol is used to reduce inflammation. Okay, so if I want to see the effect of paracetamol, then I have to administer it to a person who is having inflammation. Otherwise, drug won't be giving effect. Okay, so this therapeutic response is actually very wonderful method, but the main problem is it has to be performed on patients. Okay, so you have to administer drug and then you have to see effect. But again, this method is very variable. There are chances of variation. You cannot have replicable data. So this all are the disadvantages. So from all these methods, I suggest that plasma concentration time profile is the easiest, not actually easiest. It is the most reliable method to check bioavailability. I hope bioavailability basics has been cleared. Thank you so much, everyone.